So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to grow your wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best investment, real estate, financial independence, passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm also joined by individuals who have a passion for coaching and helping entrepreneurs grow in their business and themselves, so that indeed their business can be healthy, can grow in profits, and then ultimately sell for a big price, right? So you actually really need both, as you already know that because you listen to this podcast. And with that, I'm excited to bring on Violette, and I'm going to let her pronounce her last name because I wasn't very good at pronouncing that. She is a Cuban American. She is from Miami, and she has a passion for female entrepreneurs. And you can find her at femcity.com. So please welcome Violette to the show. Hey, Violet, how you doing?
Great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And would you please pronounce your last name for our listeners?
Sure. It is a challenging last name. It is De Ayala.
Yes, and it's a beautiful last name, and thank you so much for being on the show. So would you start with just giving our listeners a little bit about your story and your current focus?
Sure. So my story actually started since it's an entrepreneurial journey, really. I was 22 years old. I was a young mother, and I did not want to have the same setup that I did as a child, being a latchkey kid. So spending a lot of time on myself, making my own lunches and my own dinners. And when we had our first child, I just really didn't think there were any alternatives for me except for being an entrepreneur, for starting my own business. And at the age of 22, by the way, this is 1994, so a really long time ago. It was before Google, before you could take classes online, before you could actually even hire coaches. And I started my first company. I started personal training. I'd go into people's homes. I made every mistake in the book. I really had no idea. I'd never taken a business class, by the way. I graduated pre-law and had the intention of going to law school. And I just kind of stumbled upon that first company. It became successful, which, it's because of the hustle, right? You just kind of put in everything you've got. And really, it led me into opening up multiple businesses after that. I really enjoyed the ability to create and design my own life and also dictate the amount of money I wanted to create while balancing it all.
That's amazing. Wow, what a story. And I want to dig into that. And before we do, though, I want to back up a little bit. I believe we've all been given these God-given gifts that are given to us kind of at a young age, or when you're a teenager, you kind of identify those gifts. So I wanted you to think back to when you were a kid, right? And what was that one gift that you were given? And how does that connect how you help or bless people today?
I think my biggest gift as a child was I loved connecting people and talking and asking questions. And I was that kind of freak child that I loved reading the Wall Street Journal at a very young age. So I would kind of find it, around the house. And I really enjoyed hearing about businesses, learning about how businesses were started. I think also because of my culture, many Cubans arrived to the United States, and that was the option that they had as well. It's just to kind of go in business for themselves, whether they were physicians or restaurateurs. I had grown up listening to these amazing stories of starting with 2 pennies and then creating a tremendous amount of wealth. So I think it was part of just my upbringing of listening to those stories, and even listening to stories of my family in Cuba owning some hotels, owning the railroad, just listening to the stories of like starting from the bottom and rising to the top. So I think that was just part of my fiber, and the attraction to talking about numbers, to talking about business was part of who I was even as a young adult, and kind of being fearless. I think that was a big, huge thing too, is just kind of doing those things that make other people nauseous. I really enjoyed being adventurous and being a little bit daring when it came to business, and having those conversations and creating those goals.
Absolutely love that. And what a story and what a legacy that you're following and you're building too as well. So I'm curious, before your success is like or let me back up. After your personal success, right, of either building a business or becoming entrepreneurial or doing those things that you did, when did you shift and transition to say, okay, now I want to help others do the same?
I think when I started my Pilates studio, so after my personal training studio, I opened a Pilates studio, and I did that for about 10 years. And I did really well, and I learned so much. And I made the kind of like this promise to myself that I would help others when I had the ability to do so, because I really struggled with finding a mentor. I struggled with finding just the startup capital. I've struggled with finding people that would help me with introductions, like basic things that it becomes so easy, it's easy for me now. But when I first started out, it was just really difficult. And I always told myself, like, I really wish I had this, or I wish I had that. And so when I got to this point of giving others the opportunity, I started FemCity, and it's been a beautiful journey. I get to be a part of a lot of other businesses starting and inspiring others to start their own business. I'll always advocate for that. If someone comes to me and says, should I take this job or should I start my own business? I'm always going to try to really gear them towards starting their own business. And I wish I'd had all these resources that I just didn't have.
I love it. So let's dive right into that. So, dive into how empowering, women to have their own business and be entrepreneurial and to live out, their gifts and their dreams. Walk us through how FemCity and your coaching and your networking helps to accomplish that.
Sure. And that's also an evolution. So when I started FemCity in 2009, we were really just a women's networking group, meaning that we would meet once a month. We would have that standard networking setup every single month, during a lunch or during a dinner. And it really wasn't until we had a couple of new chapters. I think we had about 10 or 15 chapters in the US. And Google reached out to us and said, we really like what you guys are doing. We'd like to teach some classes for your members. And I mean, who says no to Google? It was like, sure, teach classes for us. I mean, it was free for us, and it was great education for them. And then Yelp was another partner that came to us shortly after and said, hey, we want to teach your members how to go ahead and get their business listed on Yelp. And what do you do when you have negative reviews? And how do you use it to leverage your brand on websites? And so that really kind of started to make us pivot into this place where we were really taking women on this journey of, not only starting a business, but helping them with educational resources as well, teaching them about social media. I mean, then Pinterest came on board, then Instagram. And so we had a lot of members that were like, I have no idea. How do I pivot from a brick and mortar into this kind of e-commerce? And so I think we just listened to what our members needed. We followed what the trends were. We kept up with having that information there accessible, because it changes so fast. I mean, now it's TikTok, right? Like today I was reading an article how Facebook's not where it's at, it's now TikTok, and how, entrepreneurs should be on there. And so I really think that for us with FemCity, it's really that it's not that 100% of our women are self-employed female entrepreneurs. I would say 80% of them are. We do have a lot of women that are wealth management, that are physicians, that are dentists, that they come to us to be in that circle, to be surrounded by women that are always looking to up-level their businesses and their brands. And so that's where we've positioned ourselves, is in educational, networking, group coaching. We do anything that we can within our power to help them to create what they envision for themselves.
I so love it. And it's inspiring, right? And even you mentioned, the up level, or, leveling up to the next step. And oftentimes you just need that guide who's just a couple steps ahead of you. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's 100 steps ahead, although you might be, but even at just one step ahead, we can all be coaches and guides and help the next person up, right? And it helps to break through, a lot of those, false beliefs, all those false things that hold us back. So what's the biggest thing that's holding back new members who are joining you as far as starting a brand new, business, or becoming an entrepreneur, or pivoting from their current brick and mortar to this new online COVID-19 world?
I think it's the mindset. I think it's that when you do what you can with what you believe you have the ability to do. So if you have self-limiting thoughts and self-limiting beliefs. So as an example, we sometimes have women that come to us and say, well, I can't start a business. I'm raising 5 children, right? I'm working full time. I'm raising 5 children. I don't. But then if they meet someone who's perhaps had 5 children, had a full-time business and started one, then all of a sudden it becomes that thought no longer exists, because if someone else can do it, that kind of looks like them, feels like them, has the same background. So they didn't go to Wharton Business School. They didn't work for Goldman Sachs. Like, if you feel like you can connect with someone and their story kind of is similar to yours, it inspires you to question that self-limiting belief that you've had, that you cannot do it, that you don't have what it takes, that you don't have, $3 million in funding, that you don't know those certain people. So I see that a lot, where they come through our programs, and at the beginning, it's a lot of, I can't, I won't, I just won't ever, those kind of poverty mindset, if you will. And then all of a sudden, as they start meeting other people or taking some of our classes or watching some of our videos, they recognize, well, oh my gosh, Violet's just like me. I mean, she had 2 pennies to rub together. She was able to do that. Why couldn't I? And so I think that's part of the importance of sharing our stories, our true stories, right? Not the fake kind of glamorous ones where we all look amazing on private jets, carting around to St. Bart's, but really the stories of like, I had 2 pennies. I didn't know how I was going to make it go, didn't know how I was going to put food on the table for my family. I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, but I believed in myself. And so when we share those stories, it really does help to inspire others to not only question themselves and their self-limiting thoughts that they're having currently, but also to up-level their thinking process and kind of like their vision. And as you said, it's like little, right? You hear one story that pivots you up a little bit. And then from that platform, you have a whole other new view, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can go to the next level. And so not that we all need to be at the top, but we should all be rising to higher depths of what our greatness is.
So well said, and so much there. I want to make one little comment on that, and I learned about this from a coach. His name is Russell Brunson. He runs a thing called ClickFunnels, and he talks about the hero's journey, right? And he talks about bringing people to where you were, right, when you were in that painful, challenging time. Whether it be, hey, I used to have a scarcity mentality, or I didn't have a lot of wealth, or I came from humble beginnings. All of these things. Bring them emotionally to where you're at, right? Help them to see that. And then walk them through, your journey along the ways. But what's until they know that you felt where they felt, right? Whether it be multiple kids, or not having the big college degree, or whatever limiting belief, false belief they have. Until they know that someone's been there or can empathize with them, it's challenging for them to move forward to break that false belief. And so I just have to constantly remind myself of that and share those stories. You're right, the real tough things, like. I remember when I was at Marcus and Millichap and I was trying to make it in the business, 0 commission, wife at home, baby at home, and we didn't have a lot, right? And people were saying, go get a real job. You're not making any money. How are you going to support your family? So I got the second night job and weekend job, and I just did what every I think good entrepreneur is going to do, figure out a way to do it. But a lot of that was painful and challenging, right? And it's a good reminder for ourselves, but also for those we're helping, to share those intimate challenges. And then once folks can connect there, then it helps them to break through to new heights. Is that a fair summary, or anything to add to that, Violet?
No, absolutely. I'm like nodding my head in agreement. It's funny. My husband. So we've lost everything a couple of times. So, and I share that openly, and I share that in the intention of inspiring others, much as you were saying. And I remember, when we would have those moments where we were like at the bottom, right? We lost everything. Like after 9/11, it was just gone. Like everything was gone. And again, like 2000. So we've gone through these kind of ups and downs. And he would say to me, it's going to make for a really great book. And I would get so angry with him, right? Because you don't want to hear that at that time. You're just like, I don't, we're at the bottom. Like we can barely even see to the top. But I understand now his comments and how it connects. Because now when I chat with people, whether it's speaking or through my book or through the members in our organization or through podcasts like this, like amazing platforms, when we share those stories, then people, they connect with us. And I love reading, and sometimes I read these books and it's like this woman who, inherited a castle when she got married. And then she, it's beautiful, but that doesn't connect with me. That doesn't inspire me, because that's just, that's not connected to my own story. But when I hear something of someone who lost everything a couple of times, had to figure out how to make it, how to get 2 jobs, that really connects and inspires me. And I think that I'm seeing more and more entrepreneurs sharing those stories versus like years ago when we'd kind of hide that, right? Like, oh, I don't want to tell anyone that, I lost everything in real estate investment, or I lost, oh my gosh, or I had to figure out how to make payroll. I don't want to tell anybody that. But now it's so good to share it, because there are so many people, especially now, that need to hear those stories of people that have risen from the bottom to the top. Real gritty stories. That's what really connects us.
Love it. So that's like step number 1, right? So getting connected with like Violet and a networking entrepreneur, going to level up the mindset, get around people who are hearing the same stories. So Violet, what's step number 2, right? Once they're there and they are starting to break through, with their mindsets, what's the next step of action that they can take to level up either their online presence, their brand, their marketing? Walk us through the financial intelligence. Walk us through how you help to empower and educate.
Sure. So I think in addition to, we have weekly classes that are live and they're with experts, and that's really great because they can ask questions to, women that generally would charge $200, $300 an hour. They have access to that. So we do that every Thursday. We do free group coaching. We also do now virtual networking. So I think as they come through, they have kind of like a menu of this a la carte style where they can pick and choose what feels right for them to get started. But really it's a constant, and again, I use the word evolution, that you come through and you start just getting engaged. So taking the classes, taking the group coaching, doing the virtual networking, a reminder that our network is everything, collaborate, partner up, always look to see like, what can I do better? Review every week to see like, what did I do not so good? What did I do really well? And I think it's just a constant like program where it's just, it's always having your eye on the ball when it comes to your business and your brand. We can never get to the point where like, oh, you know what? I got that big client. I can just kind of sit back now, and go away for a summer or 2 summers or a whole, and just kind of take it easy. It's the reminder that, yes, okay, you got to that great client, you landed that client, but now what? Keep on going, make some new hires. How do you delegate? How do you make it scalable? So I think it's the entire organization is geared towards addressing all of the issues that women have when they're starting a business, but also when they're running it, and also pivoting and then upscaling it and, making it so it's even bigger. Not that everyone needs to make, $6 million, $7 million, but you should have it so that it's always growing. Because if it's not growing, it's going to be stagnant.
Absolutely. And I love that thought, right? And I can't think of another quote by John Maxwell. It says, everything worthwhile is uphill all the way, right? It's uphill and it's all the way. Like if it's not challenging, if it's not pushing you to outside your comfort zone, if you're not growing, you're stagnating, and then you're eventually, dying on that whatever part of your health, your finances, your spiritual life, your partnerships, your networking. So what you guys, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're encouraging, radical participation and people that are all connected. You're sharing all your thoughts, feelings, challenges, and everyone's just constantly pushing each other, trying to track the things that you're going to track. So you're growing together as a community. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And there's also responsibility too, that we remind our members all the time that as you rise, it's our responsibility to look back and pull up, another bench to also rise. And so there's enough wealth, there's enough abundance at the top. It's not, oh, I'm at the top, so that's it. It's really our responsibility to inspire others to move forward. And it feels really good. It feels good to know, what, I mentored that person, or I helped that person with a project, or I helped collaborate, or I referred her to a big client. It feels really good to take part in the successes of others. And that's also contagious. So as we see others, inspiring, motivating, mentoring, it inspires other people to do the same, because both ends of that spectrum are very, very rewarding. And then you're part of somebody else's success. And that's also connected to your legacy.
Absolutely. And the way I think I'm hearing it, it's part of their transformation, right? And it's not just finances. Finances is just a small part of it, right? It
Right.
can be a big part for transformation and getting freedom and stuff, but it's just one part of your character, your development, your leadership, right? Your ability to break those false beliefs and change like families. I know my grandmother growing up, she had 5 kids, lost one child at age 10 to a brain tumor. Her husband, they divorced, and she basically is working 14-hour days. And she's like my inspiration for like that. She's like the God woman of the family, right? And I go, oh my gosh, Grandma, you went through so much so that my brother and I, we could go to college, right? And we were the first one to graduate, and our family tree, like on both sides, and that has propelled us to new heights. But you're exactly right. As soon as we have that blessing, we're here to have that responsibility to go back and bless others, and that is more rewarding than anything else. Fair summary?
Absolutely. I got chills. I still have chills listening to you share that, because and absolutely, it's not a matter of, I really think just, to make the world a better place, we have that, we take on that responsibility, and just pay it forward, help other people. I'm a huge believer in karmic business, like as you share, you receive. Even networking skills, like we talk about networking all the time, like, here's how to properly network, is to be of service. How can I help you without expecting anything in return? And then kind of going into that. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I just love that you shared that, because I'm adding tons of exclamation points all over that.
Oh, thank you so much. She's 93, and she was just over the other day. I'm like, my grandma, you can't be here, COVID-19. She's like, Brett, she's like, your kids, unless they're sick, don't bother me, right? I'm good. I'm like, my grandma, she's like the Energizer Bunny with the energy and like the will and the strength. And I'm just like, she's just so tough. And I'm going like, Grandma, you're my inspiration. So that being said, I want to shift a little bit too. What's maybe the biggest? Let's put our business hat on for a second, right? So, what's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs are making right now, given the COVID-19 shift? What's the biggest mistake they're making, either strategically or marketing or branding, that you're seeing, and what would be your solution to that?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that I saw at the beginning of this was people weren't pivoting. They weren't actively pivoting. So they were spending a lot of time sulking and feeling sorry for themselves. And I mean, we have a lot of members in our organization that lost millions of dollars in business, right? We have one specific member who shared that she lost $1 million in bookings for 2020. And that is horrible. That is awful. And she shares how she spent a couple months quite depressed, right? She couldn't get out of bed. She didn't really know. But then she started figuring out, let me pull myself out of bed. Let me move forward. Let me see what I can do. She's someone who's of an older generation, so she's not really that comfortable when it comes to Zoom or digital presence in general. And she shared just recently, she had a Zoom call. She tried to kind of step into that space. She had 6 people show up, and out of those 6 people, 4 booked for 2021. So that's a great story, because I'm using that one as an example, because I think so many really just, they weren't connected to pivoting, right? They didn't see this coming, and nobody did really. But I think that if you kind of saw it, you said, oh my gosh, okay, everything's going to shut down. I got to figure this out. And we saw restaurants here in Miami. They started doing takeout. They started doing catering. They started doing virtual. There's a bar here that would make the drinks, on Instagram, and then deliver it to your door, and you can watch your drink being made. So there were a lot of creative solutions. But I think that some of them just thought it was going to be gone for a week or 2 weeks, or decided, you know what, I'm going to be home. I'm just going to watch Netflix. And so as those moments are going by, life is going by. And it was awful for everyone. I don't know anyone who was like, yay, this is great. Like everyone was like, this is like challenging. But, part of that lesson is that you should always be looking a little bit ahead, and you should also have multiple streams of revenue. So if you have a big high ticket item, as an example, and you only have one revenue stream, I mean, that's not going to be a healthy portfolio when things change and shift, whether it's a pandemic or something else that happens. And I think that was a big lesson for many in our organization that, for the first couple of weeks, it really knocked them out. And for us as an organization, we pivoted really fast. I'm in Miami, so I saw what was going to happen faster, I think, because the conversation were more dense, populated here. And we were able to kind of move really fast and start moving everything, 120 chapters, moving it on the virtual. Let's start doing group coaching. Let's start doing this. So I think that that's the biggest thing, is that if you haven't pivoted yet, now's a great time to really start thinking about how do you leverage this so that you can create multiple streams of revenue, make your price point affordable for the masses versus a high ticket item. You look at the other way, like how do you get your product in the hands of 1 million people? When you start thinking like that, it starts making your brain think more scalable and you have more security there.
Love that. Multiple streams of income, right? Looking ahead, pre-planning for what could happen. No one can predict COVID-19, but we've known this automation and the challenge, really a challenge of every value proposition, especially for any service professionals that are out there, realtors with Redfin or Zillow, or the robo advisor for financial advisors, or, I think it's going to be coming to the commercial real estate world, which is my original background. And we're seeing it, and we've kind of known it's been there, but then COVID-19 hits, and it almost like it just throws, gas on a fire to say, oh no, we really got to face this. For those who were already kind of in it, they were able to pivot faster. For those who weren't prepared, a lot of it kind of passed them by. But even then, like a year ago, and I've been in the podcast world for about a year now. I got on my first YouTube channel about a year ago, and it was super awkward, right? And I'm 37, and I'm pretty young in the sense of like the technology world, right? And I was like, this is awkward. I don't want to be on YouTube. Like, I don't want to be saying these things, telling my story. It was super awkward. It took a while. It took a couple months to like even kind of feel semi-comfortable. And now we have the podcast and everything. So can definitely relate with you. But I'm also not from that previous generation. I couldn't imagine, some of my clients, they are like, we'll never be on a video, right? So, but it is the new world, and you do have to pivot. And that's why you want to get with like Violette, right? To help you do that and to grow. So that being said, you ready for the lightning round?
Sure. I don't know what that is, but let's do it.
Exactly, right? This is the best way we like to put it. So knowing what you know now, Violette, if we could go back to your 25-year-old self, what is the one golden nugget that you would make sure you knew or that you would do?
That I could do it. I spent so many years thinking I couldn't do it, and I could. So that's one thing that I would have believed in myself a little bit more.
Excellent. Believe yourself. Excellent. What is the one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
I always go back to, I was going to show my age. I'm almost 50. Return to Love and A Woman's Worth by Marianne Williamson. It was one of those books that just changed my life. I have a 20-year-old daughter. I have a 26-year-old son, a 20-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old daughter. And I even recommended it to my daughter's 20-year-old, 21-year-old friends. I just think it was life-changing for me.
So Return to Love, and was there 2 books or just one?
Oh, yeah, it's 2 books from the same author, Marianne Williamson. Oh. It's Return to Love and A Woman's Worth.
A Woman's Worth. Excellent. I'm going to get those gifts for my wife. Give me a mobile or digital resource you recommend for your business.
A mobile or digital resource. I love, can I say the name, brand? Okay.
Of course.
I love Upwork. Upwork for me has been great. We hire a lot of freelancers there. That's a really great place. And I would say I started using Quoted. It's QWOTED. That's a great place. It's journalists that are looking for experts to give tips and resources for articles that they're writing. So that's a great one. And my third one would probably be, I started using Podcast Clout. It's a friend of mine who's in South Florida also. She just started it. So it's a podcast algorithm kind of connection. So you can get matched up with podcasts that you like and perhaps can be a guest on.
Beautiful. Love that. Thank you. Favorite leadership quote or theme you try to live by?
When you know better, you do better. Everyone knows that one. And I don't know who ever said this originally, but I always go to, as you do anything, you do everything. And the third one is a confused mind does nothing. So when it comes to marketing or branding or processes, streamlining operations, a confused mind does nothing. So just keep it simple, simple words so that those in your team get it.
Beautiful. Love it. What are you curious about right now?
I am curious on how we are going to launch in Europe. We were starting to have conversations about that, and things changed, and we were doing a pilot also for programming in a school district in Texas. That was going to be a pretty good project, but I'm just curious to see how that's going to play out. So that's what's literally on my mind.
That's a great thing to be curious about. How do you stay centered after all of your success, after helping countless women and entrepreneurs and going through the ups and downs that you've gone through in your entire life? How do you stay centered in your values? And then how do you stay encouraged to reach for new goals?
I meditate daily, and the question I ask for myself is, how do I serve the world better? Every day I ask myself that. What can I do better to help others more? So that question always brings you back into clarity, and it connects you in a grounded place, and it makes sure that you are focused on the service and not, I'm going to make a lot of money on this. It kind of makes it just that you're really working on the humanity factor, the social entrepreneur side. And that was the second question. I'm sorry.
The second one is how you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new goals. Like you've reached all these goals and these plateaus. Like how you're like, okay, now I'm going to be re-encouraged to reach to this extra big goal over here.
Sure. Well, my personal goal is to be of service to over 1 million women. And so we're really not even close to that, right? We're at 25, 30,000. So I think about, how do we launch more chapters? We're pretty big in Canada now as well, and we're moving over to the West Coast. But again, it goes back into, they're so connected that I think it kind of streams together quite well. Is that, how do I become more of service? How do I get more chapters out there? How do I have more women come through our program? We have a scholarship program now, especially during this time where I know finances are tight. So how do I do that? And so that's my driving force every single morning.
Love it. So for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Sure. So professionally, you can visit us at femcity.com. And then personally, all of the social media handles are all my name, Violette de Ayala, all together: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. And I'm not on TikTok yet. I don't know if I will be.
Yeah, right. Seriously, I got to get on that too. So I've heard. So cool. Well, thank you so much, Violet, for sharing your story, for sharing your wisdom and your inspiration with us. I encourage you to keep using the gifts you've been given to bless others and reach that 1 million women to inspire and encourage on their entrepreneurial journeys. And with that, I want to thank you for being on the show, and also thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to grow your wealth. Hey, please share, rate, review, subscribe to the show, and share this. This is such an inspiring story by Violette, and with some of your friends, family members. And of course, if you have any real estate businesses, anything else that you're selling, it's highly appreciated. Please reach out to us at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, and we'll help clarify your options and perhaps save you a little bit of money. Thank you so much.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.